solve each of the following square root equations. Check to see if any solutions are extraneous. We need to isolate the square root, and luckily enough, it's already done for us. So we're going to square both sides. When we square both sides, we're left with 2x plus 5. Again, square rooting and squaring cancel each other out. Equals 29. Well, subtract 5 from both sides. We get 2x equals 44. And divide both sides by 2. And x equals 22. We need to check and make sure that our solution is not extraneous. So we're going to take that 22 and put it back into the original equation. Nothing changed. The original equation to see if that works. So we take out our calculator. It's going to be the square root of 2 times 22 plus 5. And hopefully it equals 7, which is what our problem says. And because it does equal 7, we have checked our work and we know that 22 is a solution. Square root of 4x minus 23 minus 3 equals 2. Once again, we need to isolate our square root. So we're going to start by adding 3 to both sides. We get the square root of 4x minus 23 equals 5. Once we get the square root isolated, then we can square both sides. Square rooting and squaring cancel each other out. So we're left with 4x minus 23 equals 25. Well, now we can solve for x. Add 23 to both sides. And we end up with 4x equals 48. And then we can divide both sides by 4. We get x equals 12. Again, the thing about these problems is they look like we're getting perfectly legitimate answers. And we haven't seen many extraneous solutions yet, but I'm sure they are to come. We need to go back and check. So we're going to pull out our calculator, and we're going to type in square root of 4 times, again our answer was 12, 4 times 12 minus 23, that's the value that's underneath the square root. Arrow out of that, minus 3. And what we want is we want that to equal 2. And sure enough it does. Again, what that means for us is that x equals 12 is an answer to our problem. Problem number 3. 3 times the square root of 2x minus 3. Let's add 3 to both sides. We get 3 times the square root of 2x equals 12. Our first step is to try to get the square root by itself as much as possible. So we've done a good job so far, but we need to divide both sides by 3 to get the square root isolated. So we get the square root of 2x equals 4. And then what's going to happen is now that we have the square root isolated, we can square both sides. Well, square rooting and squaring cancel each other out. We get 2x. 4 squared is 16. If you're ever in doubt, just use your calculator to type it in. And then we can finish by dividing both sides by 2. And I say finish because that's going to give us a solution to x, but the question is that solution extraneous or not? So we go back to our original equation, and we're going to type in 3 times the square root of 2 times our answer here, which was 8. Then arrow out of that, minus 3. And what we want when we press enter is we want it to equal 9. And sure enough, it does. Again, as long as that holds true, we're good. 8 is an answer. We've checked it. Number 4, still isolating. 5 times the square root of x minus 3 plus 4 equals 14. Again, we need to isolate the square root. So our first step is going to be to from both sides. We get 5. And the square root of x minus 3 is 10. Well, we still don't have it isolated. It's 5 times the square root, so we're going to divide both sides by 5. And then we're left with the square root of x minus 3. It's 2. Now the square root's isolated, and now we can do what we need to do, which is we need to get rid of the square root by squaring both sides. So we square both sides. Square rooting and squaring cancel each other out, and we're left with x minus 3 equals 4. And one more step to figure out the value for x, which is to add 3 to both sides. We get x equals 7. And now that we've got x equals 7, what we want to do is we want to go back and check. And again, just use your calculator to check. I don't write a lot of stuff out. I know some other teachers do. I know the video did. Video on the notes did. But 5 square root of 7 minus 3, arrow out of the square root, plus 4, and what we want to see when we hit enter is we want to see 14. And sure enough, we're good. Number 5. Same idea. We need to isolate. So we're going to add 10 to both sides. We get the square root of 7x divided by 5 equals 14. Everything's isolated, most specifically the square root. So we are going to square both sides. So when we square both sides, we end up with 7x divided by 5. Square rooting and squaring cancel each other out. 14 squared is 196. Type it in your calculator if you don't know that, and that's fine. I'm going to have to type something in momentarily anyway. Because eventually what we want to do is we want to solve for x. And I'm going to get rid of this fraction by multiplying this side by 5 and multiplying this side by 5. So the 5's cancel out and we get the 7x. Over here, 196 times 5. That's what I need to type in. 196 times 5 is 980. Ultimately, what we're trying to figure out is, well, what does x equal? So now we have to divide both sides by 7. So I'm going to do 980 divided by 7, which gives us 140. And now we want to go back and we want to check. So we're going to go back into our equation. Whoops, wrong problem here. But go back into our equation and type it in. And again, it's the original equation. Nothing changed. So I'm going to use my fraction button because I can. But it's the square root. And then alpha y equals. And now it's going to be 7 times 140 divided by 5. Arrow out of that. Arrow out of that. Minus 10. And what we want to get is we want 4. And again, luckily enough. By the way, if you don't have a fraction button, then it's going to be this second square root. It's going to be 7 times 140 divided by 5. Notice that that's all underneath the square root. And arrow out of that, minus 10, and we should still get 4. So once again, we do have a solution. We don't have an extraneous solution is what I should add to that. 140 is our answer to this problem.